The galaxy was old, older than most species could understand. 12 billion years of life, death, and rebirth had passed since the first intelligent beings looked up at the stars and wondered what else was out there. The Kethvoran Concord had existed for most of that time. They were a coalition of the oldest species in the galaxy. Thousands of different races worked together under their guidance. They had seen empires rise and fall. They had watched young species take their first steps into space. They had rules for everything, but there was one rule that stood above all others. Ambassador Yurixthal stood in the great hall of the Concord's central station. His body was tall and thin, covered in silver scales that shimmered under the artificial lights. Before him sat the representatives of the Morathi, a young species that had just discovered faster-than-light travel. They were eager, excited, ready to explore the universe. Yurixthal remembered feeling that way once. That was a very long time ago. "You may travel anywhere in the galaxy," he said. His voice was calm and steady. "You may trade with any species. You may settle any unclaimed world. But there is one place you must never go." He waved his hand, and a holographic map appeared in the center of the room. Billions of stars glittered like dust. Trade routes connected major systems. Colony worlds pulsed with soft light, but in one corner of the map, there was darkness. A perfect sphere of nothing. No routes. No colonies. No lights at all. "This is the Forbidden Zone," Yurixthal said. 40 light-years in every direction. At its center is a small yellow star. The natives call it Sol. The third planet from that star is called Earth. The Morathi representative leaned forward. She was covered in brown fur, with large, curious eyes. "What is on Earth?" she asked. "Why is it forbidden?" Yurixthal was quiet for a moment. He had answered this question many times over the centuries. The answer was always the same. And it was always incomplete. "We do not speak of what is on Earth," he said. "We do not observe it. We do not contact its inhabitants. We do not even think about it more than necessary. This is the first rule. The oldest rule. The only rule that has never been broken. But surely, 3 million years ago," Yurixthal interrupted, "a species called the Yithari broke this rule. They were the most advanced civilization ever to exist. They had technology we still cannot understand. They thought they knew better than the ancient warnings." He paused. The Morathi representative waited. "The Yithari no longer exist," Yurixthal said simply. "Not destroyed, not defeated. They were erased, removed from reality itself. Only a few of us remember they ever lived at all. That is what happens when you disturb Earth." The Morathi representative sat back in her chair. Her fur had gone flat against her body. "Fear." Yurixthal recognized it easily. "Follow this rule," he said, "and your species will prosper. Break it, and you will be forgotten. Not by us. By the universe itself." The meeting ended shortly after that. Yurixthal walked through the long corridors of the station, his mind troubled. He had given this speech hundreds of times. It was routine, but something felt different today. Something felt wrong. His communication device buzzed. He answered it. "Ambassador," said the voice on the other end. It belonged to Fleet Admiral Kethmora, one of the highest-ranking military officers in the Concord. "We need you in the observation center." Immediately. Yurixthal did not ask questions. He simply walked faster. The observation center was a massive room filled with screens and sensors. Dozens of technicians monitored data from across the galaxy. But today, everyone was looking at the same screen, the same image, the same impossible thing. "Tell me what I am seeing," Yurixthal said. Fleet Admiral Kethmora stood beside him. She was from a different species, shorter, stockier, with gray skin like stone. She had lived for 8,000 years. She had seen many strange things, but her eyes were wide with something Yurixthal had never seen in her before. "Fear. Ships," she said. "Human ships." At the edge of the Forbidden Zone, Yurixthal looked at the screen. There they were. 18 vessels, arranged in a perfect formation. They were not primitive rockets or simple probes. These were warships. Real warships. With weapons. With shields. With faster-than-light engines. That is impossible, Erixthal said. Our projections said humans would not achieve space travel for another 3 centuries. They should still be fighting among themselves on their planet. Our projections were wrong, Kethmora said. They have had FTL capability for at least 50 years, based on the design of these ships. Maybe longer. They have been hiding it from us. Hiding it? How? We have sensors. They found our sensors. They disabled them. Quietly. Without us knowing. Kethmora's voice was grim. These humans are not the primitives we thought they were. They knew we were watching. And they did not want to be watched. Erixthal felt cold. This changed everything. For millions of years, the Concord had monitored Earth from a safe distance. They had watched humans evolve. They had watched them build cities and wage wars. They had assumed they were just another young species, dangerous only because of what lay beneath their planet. But this was different. Humans had developed advanced technology in secret. They had hidden it from the oldest and most powerful civilization in the galaxy, and now they were patrolling the edge of the Forbidden Zone with warships. What are they doing? Erixthal asked. Are they preparing to attack? No. Kethmora said. That is the strangest part. They are not facing outward, toward us. They are facing inward, toward Earth. They are guarding something. Yes, but what? Erixthal thought about the Forbidden Zone. He thought about the ancient warnings. He thought about the Yithari, erased from existence for daring to approach that small blue planet. We always assumed Earth was dangerous because of something that lived there, he said slowly. Something that destroyed anyone who came too close. We thought the humans were victims. Prisoners. Trapped on a world with a monster. And now? Kethmora asked. Erixthal watched the human ships on the screen. They moved with precision. With purpose. With the confidence of people who knew exactly what they were doing. Now I think we were wrong, he said. I think the humans know exactly what is on their planet. I think they have always known. And I think those ships are not there to keep us out. He turned to face Kethmora directly. They are there to keep something in. The fleet admiral was silent for a long moment. Then she spoke the words that would change galactic history forever. Assemble the council. We need to open the sealed archives. We need to know what really happened 3 million years ago. And we need to find out what the humans are protecting us from. The screen flickered. The human ships continued their patrol. Somewhere on Earth, something very old and very powerful continued to sleep. And humanity stood guard, as they had for longer than anyone knew. Admiral Kira Vasquez stood on the bridge of the UES Vigilance, watching the stars through the main viewport. She was 53 years old. Her black hair was streaked with gray. Her eyes were tired but sharp. She had served in the United Earth Defense Fleet for 30 years, and she had spent the last 8 commanding the 7th Watcher Squadron. 18 ships. 2,000 crew members. All of them stationed at the edge of known space, watching for threats that most humans did not know existed. Her crew believed they were watching for aliens. They believed their mission was to protect Earth from hostile species that might discover humanity. They trained for battles that would probably never come. They ran drills and maintained weapons and kept their ships in perfect condition. They did not know the truth. Only flag officers knew the truth. Admirals, generals. The highest levels of Earth's government. Everyone else was told stories. Lies. Necessary lies. Kira sometimes wondered if she had been happier before she learned the truth. Before she understood what really lay beneath the frozen ground of Antarctica. Before she knew why humanity could never, ever let its guard down. Admiral, said Commander Chen, her second in command. Long-range sensors have detected something at the perimeter. 40,000 kilometers out. Kira turned away from the viewport. What is it? Small, fast, moving in a pattern that suggests artificial intelligence. I think it is a drone. Fifth. Origin? Commander Chen hesitated. Unknown. But the design matches nothing in our database. It is not human. Quote, Kira felt her heart beat faster. They had known this day would come. For over a century, humanity had watched the Watchers. They had found alien sensors hidden throughout the solar system. They had disabled them quietly, carefully, making sure the aliens never knew they had been discovered. But they had always known that eventually, the aliens would send something more. Something they could not disable without being noticed. Put it on screen, Kira ordered. The main viewport changed. Stars were replaced by a magnified image of the drone. It was small, maybe 2 meters long. Its design was elegant. Curved surfaces, no visible engines. It moved through space like a fish through water, smooth and silent. It is scanning us, Commander Chen said. Active sensors. It is collecting data on our ships, our weapons, our shield frequencies, everything. Kira made her decision quickly. Destroy it. Admiral? Destroy it now, before it can transmit. Commander Chen nodded. He gave the order. One of the escort ships fired a single precise shot. The drone exploded in a flash of light and disappeared, but Kira knew it was too late. The drone had been transmitting the entire time. Somewhere out there, an alien civilization now knew that humans had warships. They knew humanity was not primitive. They knew everything had changed. Admiral, Commander Chen said quietly. What do we do now? Kira closed her eyes. She thought about Earth. She thought about the billions of people living their lives, going to work, raising families, completely unaware of what slept beneath their feet. We wait, she said. We watch, and we pray they do not come any closer. 3 days later, Kira received a message from Earth. It was marked with the highest security clearance. It came directly from the Secretary General of the United Earth Government. She read it alone in her quarters. The message was simple. The aliens had responded to the destroyed drone. A fleet was gathering at the edge of the Forbidden Zone. That was what the aliens called it. Apparently, the quarantine zone they had maintained around Earth for millions of years. The message also contained new orders. Kira was to maintain position. She was not to engage. She was not to communicate. And most importantly, she was to protect the secret at all costs. The secret. Kira put down the message and walked to her personal safe. She entered the code, a code known only to her, and removed a single data chip. She had received this chip when she was promoted to Admiral. She had watched it once. Only once. She inserted the chip into her personal terminal and watched it again. The video was old, grainy. It showed a research station in Antarctica, buried deep beneath the ice. Scientists in heavy coats moved through narrow corridors. Equipment hummed and beeped. Everything looked normal. Then the camera turned a corner, and everything changed. There was a chamber. A massive chamber, carved out of rock that was older than life itself. And in the center of that chamber, there was something that should not exist. It had no clear shape. It was not solid or liquid or gas. It was something else. Something that hurt to look at. Something that made the mind want to look away and forget it had ever seen anything at all. The sleeper. That was what the scientists called it. It had crashed into Earth 4 billion years ago, before life existed on the planet. It had buried itself deep beneath the surface and gone to sleep, and it had been sleeping ever since. But it was not truly asleep, not completely. It dreamed, and when it dreamed, reality bent around it. The laws of physics became suggestions. Time moved in strange directions. Space folded in on itself. The scientists had learned 2 things about the sleeper. First, it responded to consciousness. When intelligent minds came near it, it stirred. When the ancient aliens had tried to contact early humans 3 million years ago, the sleeper had felt their minds reaching toward Earth. It had woken up for just a fraction of a second. And in that fraction of a second, it had erased an entire civilization from existence. Second, human minds were different. Human consciousness did not disturb the sleeper. It soothed it. For reasons no one understood, human thoughts and feelings and dreams kept the sleeper calm, kept it sleeping, kept it from waking up and unmaking reality itself. Humanity had discovered this in 2089. They had found the sleeper by accident, drilling for resources in Antarctica. Many scientists had died learning what it was. Many more had died learning how to contain it. But they had succeeded. They had built a network of machines that amplified human neural patterns and broadcast them into the chamber. They called it the resonance dampening system. As long as it functioned, the sleeper would continue to sleep. The warship fleet was the backup system. Each ship carried smaller dampeners. If anything happened to Earth, the fleet could maintain the field. They could keep the sleeper calm until repairs were made. Kira turned off the video. She had seen enough. She understood now why the aliens had avoided Earth for so long. She understood why they were afraid. They had seen what happened when the sleeper woke up. They had lost an entire species to a single moment of disturbance. But they did not understand what humanity had accomplished. They did not know that humans had been living above the sleeper for 300,000 years. They did not know that human minds were the only thing keeping the galaxy safe. Kira stood up and walked back to the bridge. Her crew looked at her with questions in their eyes. She could not answer those questions. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Maintain position, she ordered. Full alert status. And someone get me a secure channel to Earth Command. She had a decision to make. The aliens were coming. They were afraid of Earth, but they were more afraid of not knowing what humanity was doing with those warships. Kira could stay silent and hope they went away. Or she could do something that had never been done in human history. She could tell them the truth. The weight of that choice settled on her shoulders like a physical thing. Billions of lives. Human and alien alike. All depending on what she did next. She looked out at the stars and made her decision. Fleet Admiral Kethmora walked through corridors that had not been opened in 3 million years. The air was cold and stale. The lights flickered with each step she took. Dust covered everything. This was the Vault of Memories. The most secure location in the entire Concord. Here, the oldest species kept their most dangerous secrets. Here, knowledge too terrible to share was locked away forever, or so they had thought. Ambassador Yurixthal walked beside her. His silver scales had lost their shine. He looked old, tired, afraid. "Are you certain this is necessary?" he asked. "No," Kethmora admitted. "But we have no choice. The humans have ships. They have weapons. They are guarding something. If we are going to face them, we need to know what we are facing." They reached the end of the corridor. A massive door stood before them, covered in symbols that no living species could read. These symbols were older than any language in the galaxy. They were a warning, written by beings who had died before most stars were born. Kethmora pressed her hand against the door. It recognized her authority. Slowly, grinding against rust and age, the door opened. Inside was a single room. In the center of that room was a single crystal. It glowed with soft blue light, the light of preserved memory. This crystal contained the truth about Earth. The truth about what had happened 3 million years ago. Kethmora touched the crystal, and she remembered. The Yithari had been beautiful. They existed as pure thought, beings of light and energy, who had evolved beyond the need for physical bodies. They traveled the galaxy in ships, made of crystallized mathematics. They understood the universe in ways no other species ever had. They were kind. That was the terrible thing. They were not conquerors or destroyers. They wanted to help younger species. They wanted to share their knowledge. They wanted to lift everyone up to their level. When they discovered Earth, they saw primitive creatures just beginning to walk upright. Early humans. Simple. Struggling. Alone. The Yithari decided to help them. They sent an envoy, a single being of light, to make contact. The envoy descended through Earth's atmosphere. It found a small group of humans gathered around a fire. They were cold, hungry, scared of the darkness around them. The envoy reached out with a simple psychic greeting. Just a touch of warmth, a feeling of welcome, a message that said, "You are not alone." That was when the sleeper woke up. It had been sleeping for 4 billion years. Waiting, dreaming of nothing. And then, suddenly, it felt something it had never felt before. An alien mind, reaching toward Earth, reaching toward the creatures that had grown above its resting place. The sleeper did not like this. For 1 nanosecond, 1 billionth of a second, the sleeper opened its eyes. Reality screamed. Across the galaxy, the Yithari simply stopped existing. Not just their bodies, not just their ships, everything they had ever been, every world they had touched, every species they had uplifted, every memory of them in every mind that had ever known them, gone. The universe rewrote itself. History changed. A civilization of trillions, spanning millions of years, was erased as if it had never existed at all. Only the Kethvoran survived with their memories intact. Their eldest minds had been protected in quantum-locked vaults, designed to preserve information against any disaster. They remembered the Yithari. They remembered what had happened, and they were the only ones who ever would. Kethmora released the crystal. She was shaking. Tears ran down her stone-gray face. She had known the story. Every Kethvoran elder knew the story, but seeing it, feeling it was something else entirely. Now you understand, Yurixthal said quietly. Now you know why we never approach Earth. Why we tell every species to stay away. Why we would rather be thought superstitious than explain the truth. The sleeper, Kethmora whispered. It is still there. Still sleeping. Sleeping, yes, and the humans have been living above it for 300,000 years. Yes, Kethmora's mind raced. This changed everything. For 3 million years, the Concord had assumed that humans were victims. Prisoners trapped on a dangerous world with no way to escape. They had watched humanity from a distance, waiting for the inevitable moment when the sleeper would wake again and erase them too. But that moment had never come. Humans had lived, grown, built civilizations, developed technology, achieved space travel, and through all of that, the sleeper had remained asleep. Why? Human minds are different, Kethmora said slowly, working through the logic. The sleeper responds to consciousness. It felt the Yithari reaching toward Earth, and it destroyed them. But human consciousness does not disturb it. More than that, Yurixthal said. Human consciousness seems to soothe it. We have monitored the sleeper's activity for millions of years. When human population increases, the sleeper becomes more stable. When humans dream, it dreams peacefully. They are not its victims. They are its keepers, Kethmora finished. The two of them stood in silence, surrounded by dust and ancient secrets. The warships, Kethmora said finally. They are not protecting Earth from us. They are protecting us from Earth. The humans know about the sleeper. They must have discovered it. And instead of running, instead of trying to destroy it, they built a fleet to guard it. They are keeping the galaxy safe. Yurixthal agreed. And they have been doing it alone. Without thanks. Without recognition. Without even knowing that other species exist. Kethmora felt something she had not felt in thousands of years. Shame. Deep, burning shame. The Conquered had called humans primitives. They had watched them struggle and suffer and fight among themselves. They had done nothing to help. Convinced that Earth was too dangerous to approach. They had assumed they knew better than everyone else. And all along, humans had been doing the most important job in the galaxy. They had been standing guard over an entity that could unmake reality itself. They had been protecting species they had never met from a threat they had no obligation to face. We owe them, Kethmora said. We owe them more than we can ever repay. Yes, Yurixthal said. The question is, what do we do now? Kethmora thought about the human fleet at the edge of the Forbidden Zone. She thought about Admiral Vasquez and her ships, watching and waiting. She thought about the billions of humans on Earth, living their lives above an ancient nightmare. She thought about the Yithari, erased from existence for trying to help. We go to them, she decided. Carefully, respectfully. We tell them what we know. We offer our help, and we hope that they are willing to forgive us for leaving them alone for so long. Irixthal looked uncertain. And if they are not willing, if they see us as a threat? Kethmora met his eyes. Then we accept whatever they decide. They have earned that right. They have been protecting us for 300,000 years without asking for anything in return. The least we can do is trust them now. They were said, ADT-4. The least we can do is trust them now. She turned and walked back toward the corridor. Toward the light. Toward a future that suddenly looked very different than it had before. Behind her, the vault of memories fell silent once more. The crystal dimmed, the secrets went back to sleep. But the galaxy was about to wake up to a new truth, and nothing would ever be the same again. Admiral Kira Vasquez watched the alien fleet arrive on her sensors. One ship at first. Then 10. Then 50. Then more than she could count. They gathered at the edge of the Forbidden Zone like storm clouds on the horizon. Her crew was terrified. She could see it in their faces, hear it in their voices. They had trained for this possibility. But training was not the same as reality. Reality was 1,000 alien warships appearing out of nowhere. Reality was knowing that humanity stood alone against a civilization that had existed for billions of years. "Admiral," Commander Chen said. His voice was steady, but his hands shook slightly. "The alien fleet is holding position. They have not crossed the perimeter. They are waiting," Kira said. "They want to see what we do." She had spent the last 3 days preparing for this moment. She had argued with Earth Command for hours. She had made her case again and again. And finally, they had agreed. Humanity could not hide forever. The secret was too important. The stakes were too high. If the aliens attacked without understanding what they were attacking, the sleeper might wake, and then everyone would die. The only option was the truth. "Open a communication channel," Kira ordered. "All frequencies. All languages we have recorded from their transmissions. Let them know we want to talk." The bridge fell silent. Every eye was on the main screen. Every breath was held. For a long moment, nothing happened. The alien fleet stayed motionless. The stars continued to burn. The universe held its breath. Then a response came. "This is Fleet Admiral Kethmora of the Kethvoran Concord," said a voice through the speakers. It was translated by computer, but the tone was clear, cautious, curious, maybe even hopeful. "We receive your message. We are willing to speak." Kira stood up from her command chair. This was it. The moment that would define humanity's place in the galaxy. She had practiced what she would say 100 times. She had memorized every word. But when she opened her mouth, she threw away the script and spoke from her heart. "My name is Admiral Kira Vasquez, of the United Earth Defense Fleet. I command the 7th Watcher Squadron. And I have something to tell you that you need to hear." She took a deep breath. "We know why you avoid Earth. We know about the thing that sleeps beneath our planet. We know about the resonance incident. We know what happened to the species that tried to contact us 3 million years ago." Silence from the alien fleet. Kira continued. "You think we are primitives. You think we are trapped on a dangerous world with no way to escape. You have watched us for thousands of years, waiting for us to be destroyed, like all the others." She paused. "You were wrong." Kira walked closer to the main screen, as if she could look the alien admiral directly in the eyes. "We discovered the sleeper in 2089. We lost many good people learning what it was. We spent decades studying it, trying to understand it, trying to find a way to control it. And we succeeded." She let that sink in. "Human minds are different from yours. We do not disturb the sleeper. We calm it. Our thoughts, our dreams, our very existence keeps it sleeping peacefully. We are not its prisoners. We are its keepers. These warships you see are not here to fight you. They carry devices that amplify human neural patterns and broadcast them toward Earth. They are a backup system. If anything happens to our planet, if anything disturbs the main dampening field, these ships can maintain stability. They can keep the sleeper asleep." Kira's voice grew hard. "We have been protecting you. All of you. Every species in this galaxy. We have been standing guard over the most dangerous thing in the universe. And we have been doing it alone. Without help, without thanks, without even knowing that anyone else was out there. And now you show up with 1,000 warships because you are scared of us? There was a long pause. When Fleet Admiral Kethmora spoke again, her voice was different. Softer. Almost humble. Admiral Vasquez, we did not know. We could not have known. For 3 million years, we believed Earth was a threat to be avoided. We never imagined that humans were protecting us. Well, now you know, Kira said. So here is what happens next. You can turn your fleet around and leave. Go back to your space. Forget about Earth. We will continue doing what we have always done, and you can go on pretending we do not exist. Or, Kira smiled. It was not a friendly smile. Or you can tell me the truth. All of it. Everything you know about the sleeper. Everything you know about the species it has destroyed. Everything you have been hiding in your secret archives for millions of years. That is what you want? Kethmora asked. Information? I want more than that, Kira said. I want acknowledgement. I want you to understand what humanity has done. What we have sacrificed. How many people have died to keep that thing asleep? Her voice cracked slightly. My grandmother was one of the scientists who discovered the sleeper. She died in the first containment breach. My father spent his entire life working on the dampening field. He never saw his family, never took a vacation, never lived a normal life, because he knew what would happen if he failed. Humanity has given everything to protect a galaxy that did not even know we existed. And we never asked for anything in return. But now that you are here, now that you know the truth, I want one thing. Name it, Kethmora said. I want the names, Kira said. Every species that was destroyed by the sleeper before we learned to control it. Every civilization that was erased from existence. Every race that the universe forgot. Quote, we want to remember them. Even if no one else will. The communication channel was silent for a long time. Kira waited. Her crew waited. The entire human fleet waited. When Kethmora finally responded, her voice was thick with emotion. In 8,000 years of life, I have never felt ashamed of my people. Until today. We called you primitives. We watched you struggle and suffer, and thought ourselves superior. And all along, you were doing the most important work in the galaxy. You were standing in the darkness so that everyone else could live in the light. Admiral Vasquez, on behalf of the Kethvoran Concord, on behalf of every species we represent, I apologize. We were wrong about humanity. We were wrong about everything. You will have your names. You will have our knowledge. You will have anything you want, because you are right. You have earned that and more. Kira felt tears in her eyes. She did not wipe them away. Thank you, she said simply. No, Kethmora replied. Thank you. Thank you for protecting us. Thank you for standing guard when no one asked you to. Thank you for being exactly what the galaxy needed, even when the galaxy did not deserve it. The communication ended. But the conversation was just beginning. For the first time in human history, humanity was not alone. And for the first time in galactic history, the oldest species had found something they thought was impossible. They had found hope. Admiral Kira Vasquez sat back down in her command chair. Her hands were shaking. Her heart was pounding. But she was smiling. They had done it. They had told the truth. And the truth had set them free. Now came the hard part. Building a future together. Learning to trust each other. Finding a way forward. But that was tomorrow's problem. Today, humanity had won. The negotiations lasted 3 months. Representatives from the Kethvoran Concord traveled to Earth for the first time in galactic history. They landed in Geneva, in a building that had been quickly prepared for the most important meeting humanity had ever held. Security was everywhere. The world watched through screens and cameras. Fleet Admiral Kethmora led the alien delegation. Ambassador Yurixthal walked beside her, Behind them came dozens of representatives from other species, beings of all shapes and sizes, creatures that humanity had only dreamed of meeting. Admiral Kira Vasquez led the human delegation. She had been promoted twice since her first contact with the aliens. She had become the face of humanity to the galaxy. It was a responsibility she had never wanted but could not refuse. The first weeks were spent sharing information. The Concord opened their archives completely. They told humanity everything they knew about the sleeper. Its origins, its nature, its terrible power. They explained the resonance incident in detail. They described the Ythari and the dozens of other species that had been erased throughout cosmic history. In return, humanity shared their research. They explained the dampening field. They described the Watcher fleet and its backup systems. They showed the aliens exactly how human minds interacted with the sleeper and kept it calm. The aliens were amazed. Their scientists studied the data for days, trying to understand how such a simple species had solved a problem that had terrified the galaxy for billions of years. The answer, they finally realized, was simple. Humans did not think like other species. Their minds were chaotic, emotional, unpredictable. They dreamed strange dreams and felt strange feelings. They were not orderly or logical or calm, and that was exactly what the sleeper needed. The sleeper was a being of pure order. Perfect, cold, mathematical order. When it encountered other orderly minds, the minds of advanced species who had evolved beyond emotion, it saw them as threats, competition, things to be eliminated. But human minds were different. They were messy and complicated and full of contradictions. To the sleeper, human minds were not threats. They were like white noise. Background. Static, something comfortable and familiar that helped it sleep. Humanity had not defeated the sleeper through technology or power. They had done it simply by being human. When the sharing of information was complete, the real negotiations began. Fleet Admiral Keth Mora made the first offer. The Concord wishes to welcome humanity as a full member of our alliance. We offer access to 12 billion years of accumulated knowledge, technology beyond your imagination, medical advances that could extend human lifespans by centuries, energy sources that could power your civilization forever. It was a generous offer. The most generous offer in galactic history. Every human in the room felt the weight of it. Admiral Vasquez stood up. She looked at Keth Mora directly. No. The room went silent. The aliens looked confused. Even the human delegates seemed surprised. We do not want your technology, Vasquez said. We do not want your knowledge. We do not want your medicine or your energy or your gifts. Keth Mora's stone-gray face showed shock. But why? We offer you everything we have. Because that is not what we need, Vasquez said. Technology can be developed, knowledge can be learned. But there is something you have that we cannot get anywhere else. She paused. Truth. Vasquez walked to the center of the room. Every eye, human and alien, followed her. For 3 million years, species have been erased by the sleeper. Civilizations destroyed. Entire races forgotten. The universe itself does not remember them. But you do. The Keth Voran remember. She turned to face Keth Mora. We want the names. Every species that was ever erased. Every civilization that was ever destroyed. Every being that the universe forgot. We want to know who they were. What they accomplished. What they dreamed of before they were taken. Why? Keth Mora asked softly. Vasquez's voice was steady. Because someone should remember. Because they deserve to be more than nothing. Because humanity has spent 300,000 years guarding the thing that killed them. And we never even knew their names. She looked around the room at the alien delegates. You want to thank us? You want to repay what humanity has done? Then give us this. Help us build a memorial. Help us create something that will last forever. Something that says, these species existed, they lived, they mattered, and even if the universe forgot them, we never will. The room was completely silent. Then Fleet Admiral Keth Mora did something that no Keth Voran had done in thousands of years. She bowed her head in respect. It will be done, she said. We will give you every name, every story, every memory we have preserved, and we will help you build your memorial. There is one more thing, Vasquez said. Name it. We will continue to guard the sleeper. That is our responsibility, our purpose. But we do not want to do it alone anymore. She smiled slightly. We would like partners, friends, people who understand what we are doing and why it matters. We do not need your technology. But we would welcome your company. Kethmora looked at Vasquez for a long moment. Then she smiled too, a strange expression on her stone-like face. Partners, she repeated. Yes, we would like that very much. The treaty was signed 1 week later. It was not a treaty of trade or alliance or mutual defense. It was something simpler and more profound. It was called the Covenant of Memory. Under its terms, humanity would continue to serve as the vigil, the guardians of the sleeper. They would maintain the dampening field. They would patrol the edge of the solar system. They would keep the galaxy safe, as they had always done. In return, the Concord would share their memories. Every species that had been erased, every civilization that had been lost, all of it would be given to humanity, to be preserved forever, and together, they would build the Monument of the Unwritten. Construction began 6 months later. The monument was built in Earth orbit, visible from the planet's surface. It was made of crystal and light, designed to last for billions of years. Inside, the names of every erased species were recorded. Their histories, their achievements, their hopes and dreams. The Yithari were remembered. So were the Kolvari, the Tesran, the Mahalith, and dozens of others. Species that no one else in the universe knew had ever existed. Admiral Kira Vasquez attended the dedication ceremony. She was old now, 70 years had passed since first contact. But her eyes were still sharp. Her mind was still clear. She looked at the monument floating in space above Earth. She thought about her grandmother, who had died discovering the sleeper. She thought about her father, who had given his life to keeping it asleep. She thought about all the generations of humans who had stood guard without ever knowing why. We did it, she whispered. Fleet Admiral Kethmora stood beside her. The alien had become a friend over the years, a true friend. You always did it, Kethmora said. We just finally noticed. Vasquez laughed softly. I suppose that is true. She looked at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Concord was watching. Thousands of species, working together, building a future. And at the center of it all, humanity stood guard over the darkness. They thought we were primitives, Vasquez said. They thought we were locked in a cage with a monster. And now? Kethmora asked. Vasquez smiled. Now they know the truth. We were never locked in with the monster. The monster was locked in with us, and we held the key the whole time. She turned to face her old friend. We do not fear the dark, Kethmora. We never have. While everyone else ran from shadows, we lit candles. While everyone else hid from monsters, we stood guard. That is what humans do. That is who we are. Kethmora nodded slowly. I know. That is why we trust you. The two of them stood in silence, watching the monument shine in the darkness of space. Around them, the galaxy continued to turn. Life continued to flourish, and somewhere beneath the ice of Antarctica, the sleeper continued to dream. But it was peaceful now. Happy, perhaps, because above it, humanity kept watch. And humanity would never stop. The end.